Hello, folks. So in this video, we're going to be actually exploring this thing called test containers, specifically test containers cloud. So you must have actually heard, I mean, you might have, I'm not sure. Test containers is a pretty popular thing now. Um, I mean, I know a lot of people who have tried out test containers. So it's actually a way to actually run your tests inside containers, specifically say your integration tests with your database or with your message broker and things like that, right? Um, so you can get instances of common databases, Selenium browsers, or anything that can run in a Docker container. Yeah. So the company behind this is Atomic Jar. I didn't know about this before actually. I just knew Test Containers is an open source project, and now this company, and they also have in other languages, by the way. And now this company has actually created a cloud version wherein instead of running things in your local, uh, you don't have to run it in your local. Instead, you can run it in the cloud. And now, why would you do that? I mean, of course, for example, my Mac is like say 32 GB RAM, but still I don't run too much stuff on it because it's just starts becoming very slow at some point. Um, so instead, what I do is I get a remote developer machine in AWS or something like that, or in our internal infrastructure, and then like SSH into it and like get a Linux machine basically, which is lightweight, SSH into it and like run things. And I would just usually have only some 8 GB or 16 GB RAM with quite some CPU, say 4 or 8 CPUs, and like enough disk storage like 100 GB or something like that. If needed more, get more. So in this case, I think these folks are actually trying to do remote execution basically, and you can read about Test Containers Cloud, and you can sign up for early access. So they have this type form that you can actually just put things in. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and like get rid of this for now. I already got access, and you can read about Test Containers Cloud here, and yep. So you can go check this out. Um, so also the other thing is, it's not always that you can run stuff in your local, as in like, for example, if you have a Apple A1, MacBook A1, then and if you're having basically ARM architecture and Docker or things like that are cannot be run there for some reason, then you can still use the cloud. So basically, you just need to have some machine which can interact with the cloud and some basic features, and that's all. Your test containers cloud will take care of everything, right? Even if you have a slow internet, apparently it can still do away with that slow internet. So it's fast and whatnot. So pretty much all the good stuff that they'll tell you about any service, but you can go check it out. I was recently trying it out, and I'll tell you what my experience was. For example, the first thing that I did was actually got access, and then this is the website I was going into, which is app.testcontainers.cloud/login. And then I logged in using GitHub. They told me the terms and conditions, privacy policy, and all that. And then for different operating systems, they had a desktop app similar to Docker desktop. They had a desktop app. So it's a user space application to unlock the cloud for Docker containers in your integration. Yes, so you can get a DMG or you can get an exe file or Debian or RPM and all that. And then the next thing was basically just launch it. When you launch it, it will go to this website again and then like do all the authentication authorization stuff. And then finally it will come to this page. So once you try running tests now, after this is running, you will notice that your server version is like some test containers cloud. This is the Docker server, Docker engine, and it will be running there, right? And finally, they ask you to actually share an invitation with others in your organization. Um, so yeah, you can always provide feedback once you get into the private beta. So you can sign up for early access. So I actually have a demo application here, um, which I created quite some time ago. So this is a bit old. Um, moment. Okay, so this is a bit old, but yeah, I mean, I'm going to try this out and see if it works. So I actually have Docker running in my local. So I have Docker, right? And if you see Docker info, you'll notice the server and the client versions and whatnot. It's taking quite some time, but okay. Server and whatnot. So version is this and whatnot, right? Now, let me run Gradle W. So I've already run Gradle once here. So it downloaded the Gradle and all that. So now I'm just going to go ahead and run tasks to see what tasks we have. And I'm going to run basically the unit tests, basically. Let's see how that goes. Oops. Class name does not export to one moment. Which version of Java do we have? Okay. We actually need Java 15 for this project. So I'm going to go ahead and like do that. Use and then 1.15.0. Let me list what we have. Use this and then go ahead and like do test. Let's see how that goes. Awesome. So it's working. It's compiling and it looks like it's up to date. So I'm going to go ahead and like clean it up once so that it runs new. It doesn't use the cache and all that. So it's executing the tests. So 6 tests completed, and like you can actually see the Docker containers running over here. So test containers, Riot and whatnot, right? And sometimes this will be dead. Like, so that was pretty fast. It executed in 10 seconds, and you should be able to see the report here. I think. Let's see. Test index.html open. Yep. So you can see the test summary here. So test containers, so we have some tests over here. Redis, there's also an SQL data store stuff, right? You can go check out the code over here. Now I'm going to try to run this using Testcontainers Cloud. One moment, I'm going to quit the Docker desktop so that you can see that there's no Docker running in my local. Cool, so Docker is not running. There's a Testcontainers properties file over here that you can see. This contains some token and a Docker host. So before we run any of this, we'll actually be running Testcontainers Cloud Desktop, and we'll notice that the connection is disconnected. And you can check out the logs, by the way. You can right click and say Visual Studio Code, and you can see the logs over here. And see, we'll come back here. Cool. So now I'm going to run this thing again. Let's see how this runs. Let's clean it up. Let's test. So while this is running, we're going to check out one more thing, right? We're going to go to the knowledge base of this thing, this test containers thing, to check out how you can directly talk. So this is basically, test containers is basically just connecting to a runtime. Currently it says Docker, but container runtime. And when Docker is not running locally for you, Docker engine or like the container runtime is not running locally for you, Testcontainers Cloud is running this infrastructure somewhere else so that your containers run there. So how do you talk with that infrastructure? How do you talk to the containers over there, right? How to talk directly to the underlying Docker API? It is currently possible to talk directly to the underlying Docker API using the following command, right? So now you can just do this. By the way, this failed. We'll come back to this thing. If I do this, I can see that they're getting the Docker host from here, basically. The other things in this are basically the token, and that's all I think. So this is the Docker host. I don't want to show the whole file because the file has the token. So this Docker host, if you notice, it's actually a local host pointing to 50643. I believe this is connecting to, so if you see here, it says it's running, right? Basically, you started connecting to this, and this started proxying to the, say, test containers cloud. So you can't know the exact direct URL, I think, over here. It's probably a auto-generated random thing, but this is basically a closed source thing, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, this connects to some, I believe, I'm not sure though, this, I believe it connects to some server here, which in turn does like some proxying and forwarding to the test containers cloud, also based on the token and whatnot. So, and then yeah, you finally get the response, right? Here you can see that this is failing basically. If you go check out the reports, right? Interestingly, you'll find that you go check out the reports. One moment. Go here. Check out the report. You'll notice, like, go inside. You'll notice, like, it says previous attempts to find a Docker environment failed. Will not retry. Please see logs and check configuration, right? So basically, it's saying that it's not able to find a Docker environment, right? That's weird. People said like in Testcontainers Cloud that hey, it'll just run directly. Now the tricky thing is this, right? Mine is an older application. So if you check out the version of test containers that I have, you will notice that I'm using an old version of test containers. Oops, one moment. You'll see that I'm using version 1.15.1. If you go to their getting started in their knowledge base or in their documentation, what test containers libraries are compatible with the test containers cloud? So apparently from V 1.16.0 only, it's all compatible, right? So I'm going to go ahead and like try to change this alone. I'm going to say dot, go dot, open up the build Gradle, find out this, and I could go to the latest version like test containers Java. The latest version in test containers Java is actually 1.17.3, so I'm going to go ahead and use that and see if it works. 1.17.3. Let's see if I can do things now. Right. So clean, test, it'll do a build, and then I think it should just run it in the cloud. Let's see if it does run it. And we can also check out the Docker containers running here, and we can also check out the version of Docker here. You'll notice that it's running the test containers cloud, and interestingly, you can see that this is the cloud test containers cloud thing, and you can see the containers coming up, and stuff running over here. 2 tests completed. You can probably do a watch. Oops, there's no watch. Okay. Anyways, you can probably do a watch -n1 and see this. So you can see Postgres, Redis, and whatnot coming up over here, and then everything going away, and then it's pretty fast, right? So yeah, after some time this will also be dead. That's pretty cool. Like everything's done, and like it's all done in the cloud. You don't have any local Docker thing. The Docker that you are connecting to is actually the test containers cloud. So test containers cloud server and whatnot, right? One interesting thing to note is that when we were checking out how to dock directly to the underlying Docker API, it is currently possible to dock using this. However, note that test containers cloud is not a generic Docker as a service, right? Apparently, they're not just some Docker as a service thing. I don't know what they do though. I'm guessing they could be running anything like say Docker Swarm, Kubernetes, Nomad, or any say container orchestration thing to run all these containers. And this should be considered an implementation detail. So yeah, like, is it a Docker as a service or not? No idea, right? It would be interesting to check out like what they do. And I am actually even interested to try out say an implementation of test containers cloud myself to see how that goes. By checking out their open source library to see what they do, and maybe try out an implementation myself to see how that goes with say something like Kubernetes or just say any Docker engine or Docker container runtime and see how that goes. Cool. So that's all I had for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.